Hey, welcome to Horns Up. I'm Animesh.
And I'm Peter.
And making his return to Horns Up, his bassist, marketer, merchandiser, production and operations manager, social media maven, and fellow podcaster, Andy Dowling. Andy, did we miss any of your designations?
I think you got most of them covered. I love it. I'm going to have to get you to put that in writing for me. I'll put that on my LinkedIn profile. That's
great. But, I was like, hey, wait, isn't it Lord Andy? We decided this last time on the podcast.
Yeah, Lord Andy. That's the salutation.
Well, it's good to be back, guys. It's nice to be a return guest, and congrats on the podcast still chugging away and doing lots of great episodes. It's really hard to do a podcast, so you often see podcasts start and they do a few episodes and then they just disappear. But you guys are going strong, so it's fantastic. Congrats.
Yeah, we listened to yours, so we're learning from the best.
And we only we're like half as good as you because we only put out one episode a week. Huh?
Oh, that's right. Is that how it's calculated? Okay, all right, done. Okay, thank you.
So since we are doling out the congratulations, let's begin with some ripe news, or news that's almost been in existence for 24 hours. At the time we're recording this, Lord's new album, Undercovers Volume 1, is the number one album on the Australian Independent Record Labels Association's Independent Labels Album Chart. It's also number 7 on the ARIA charts. And since it's now been a considerable amount of time, Andy, has that news finally sunk in?
No, it hasn't. So last week we were given a little bit of a hint and said, you guys might get in the top 15 for the ARIA charts. So just for people that don't understand, the ARIAs are the main music charts in Australia. They're the mainstream music charts. And there's certain categories. So the charts that we're in is for Australian artists that have released albums. And so we were told that we're going to be in the top 15, but they wouldn't tell us where. They just said more than likely you'll be in the top 15. And I thought, this is great. We didn't even expect to be anywhere in the charts. So we're waiting. And then Friday afternoon at 5 p.m, they released the charts and we were number 7. And the first thing that came into my mind was, I've got work to do. I've got to start getting the PR machine out. I've got to start, I've got to start hustling, and it's been like that ever since. And so since then, as you mentioned, yesterday, we were informed that we hit number 1 for independent artists because we're completely independent. We're not on a label of any sort. And that's fantastic. And then one interesting thing, which I'm not really promoting too much because it confuses people, but I'll give a bit of context because it is quite impressive. We found out that we were number 54 in the overall ARIA charts, which includes all international artists. And so I think above us, at number 50 is Post Malone. And then I think 2 spots below us is the new Foo Fighters album. And then there's like the Bee Gees. There's a bunch of reissues that for whatever reason, the Beatles albums are still selling. And it's just like, but we're in there, number 54.
On your social media post, your mom commented. So I'm pretty sure she's like really proud of you. Like you're outselling the Bee Gees.
Oh, that's it. So for us, it's so surreal, and it hasn't sunk in. I think at the moment there's so many things on the go now because we didn't expect any of this to happen. We just thought we're going to put a covers album out. We've been dealing with COVID for the past 12 months. We don't know what to do. All the plans that we had were thrown out the window. So let's just do a covers album to keep something moving. And it was just going to be a bit of fun. And we didn't expect its reaction at all. So over the past few days, we've been scrambling to basically rework our plans. What can we do to capitalize on this and keep the whole thing moving? So I'm, as I said before, I'm in total PR mode. So it's fun because it's what I love doing. So, but later on, I'll sit back, I'll have a few beers, and I'll let it sink in. And I'll probably have a tear in my eye or something like that.
Yeah, actually, that's important, right? Because you're sometimes so much in the hustle mode of sorts, you just never kind of sit back and let it sink in. But yeah. I must say now, since this is your second time on the charts, right? It's nothing new for you guys because when we spoke about Fallen Idols, you also had charted at that time. But yes. I must ask you at this point, because this is something that's not so fresh, but it happened when you all put out your first single for Uncovered. And I think you know where I'm going with this, but
Mm.
I'm going to put you on the spot. What's a bigger accomplishment? Getting on the charts or getting Darren Hayes of Savage Garden to acknowledge, comment, and actually share the cover of Moon and Back?
Well, it's hard because they're both pretty damn cool, and they both come with different consequences, like different results. I think different things happen as a result of those two things. I think overall the chart position is definitely sort of that's a childhood dream. Like when you first start playing music and you're like, oh, I can imagine like being so popular that you enter the charts, you become famous, blah blah blah. And it's not quite like that in reality, but it's still pretty cool. So it's a bit of a childhood tick of the box there, which is really good. The Darren thing, wow, hey, that's like that is surreal, because I grew up listening to Savage Garden as a young kid when that first album came out, and I was still getting into music, and I loved a lot of pop music, and that was an album and a song in particular that I really really loved. And so who would have known at the time, many years later, I would be playing on a cover song and the man himself would sing our praises. And funnily enough, about half an hour before we started recording this, I was messaging Darren because I'm trying to get him to give me a little bit more social media love, but I wanted to tell him about the chart placings. So I thought he'd be at the very least amused by it. And he just said, congratulations, that's so awesome. He goes, what can I do? And I'm just
Wow.
like, what do you mean? What can you do? And I'm like, okay, I've got to calm down here, because I could give him a list of 50 things that he could do for me. But I just said, look, a bit of social media love. So he's retweeted something just before for me, which is good. And we'll see. We'll see what else comes of it. But it looks like we've formed a bit of a friend there in a very high place, which is incredible. So very cool.
That's kind of awesome, because I don't know about Animesh, but I remember listening to that album and it was like the rage. It was all over, like the television, radio, everywhere. So it's kind of hard to get away from, even in India, right?
Immediately the opportunist in me is going like, okay, this is a live gig surprise thing, and now presenting on vocals just for you guys. Here's Darren Hayes.
Hey, never say never. Crazier things have happened, and as the last few weeks, a lot of crazy things have happened that I would never expect to have happened. So it's really really weird. But like just on Savage Garden alone, it's funny because I think we're all a similar age, and so I think we all sort of grew up with this era of music. And so what I've found is very similar to what happened with Kylie Minogue in a way when we did the cover for Kylie Minogue about 10 years ago. You've got a lot of metalheads that probably wouldn't actively admit that they like a lot of pop music. And Savage Garden hits a nerve a little bit more because many of our sort of age group metalheads grew up with a lot of pop like Savage Garden. And so part of them are like, I don't want to admit that I like Savage Garden, but this is really cool. And so they're trying to find ways to justify, go, oh, well, it's better now because it's a metal band playing the song, but I didn't know. And so just whatever they can do to maintain their metal cred, street cred. But it's been really cool. And we just picked the right song at the right time, and we're so happy that it's managed to be received so well. And we're still doing more. We've got another. Well, if everything goes to plan, we've got another announcement tonight, just to keep this whole thing moving. Which the idea came out of my ass about 24 hours ago. We've managed to go from zero to something. So that potentially will happen tonight, and then we're working on something a little bit bigger that will hopefully come out in the next few weeks as well. But it's all off the back of this stuff, so it's
awesome.
It's fun.
So at this point, I want to again put you on the spot, right? Because like I mentioned earlier, this is the second time Lord is getting charted. Why do you think the album is performing on the charts the way it is? I mean, is there a secret sauce, and can you share?
I think from the covers point of view, it's very obvious that there's a novelty of a metal band playing a bunch of cover songs. I think it's an easy. There's a bit of low-hanging fruit there for a term that we often use. It's just an easy win. But I think that what has made this extra special is that we're an Australian band covering a lot of Australian artists, popular Australian artists, including a lot of metal stuff as well. We've got a bit of a legacy. So we've got an existing fan base who are coming along for the ride, and they've helped us build that momentum. And and then obviously the extra things that were unexpected, like Darren giving us the public nod of approval for the Savage Garden cover and things like that. And it sort of became a chain reaction. More and more people started to find out about it, and the swell just kept getting bigger and bigger. So that's kind of what happened with Undercovers. But even with Fallen Idols, what we found is that it's just a different game these days to what it was 20 years ago. People don't sell as much music as they used to. And so the way that the charts are calculated, at least in Australia, and I don't know exactly how it works, but it's a mixture of online sales through a retailer that's registered with in our country, ARIA, the ARIA charts. It's also streams. I believe it may be radio airplay as well. I think there might be a calculation or something that's fed into that algorithm or whatever it might be. And then they come out with the results. But what we found is that the what would you call it? Like the barrier to entry is actually a lot easier than a lot of bands realize. And I think there's a lot of things that bands can do that they're not doing at the moment. And just from my side, now being on the other side of the fence, I'm looking at going, well, there actually is a very clear path here. It does take a lot of work, but it's not impossible. And there are zero gatekeepers. You can actually make this happen. And so I think, I don't know, maybe that entrepreneur side of me, I might have to release a book sometime, an instruction manual of how to make it into the ARIA charts. But look, I think we've just been lucky. We obviously we've got the music, which helps. We've got the legacy of the band and our existing fan base, so we've already got a head start. And I think just a lot of grassroots people power and getting people behind us and backing us. And like I've been hands-on for the past 8 weeks, talking about the lead up for the release, the pre-order period, the single, now the album's out, and it's not slowing down at all. So it's been kind of a full-time gig for me just doing this. So it just comes down to what sort of dedication people have. But it's very positive for me. I'm very optimistic about the future of music, at least here in Australia, because I've just seen what the possibilities are. Like it's far clearer to me now than it was a couple of years ago. So exciting.
Yeah,
fantastic. Okay, so let's talk more about Undercovers, and of course we'll try and steer away from the usual questions of the stories behind the songs, because your podcast with Lord Tim covers those topics really, really well. And of course there's all that additional audio content which you get, right, which kind of covers that aspect. So first, because I just brought it up, can you just plug that specific episode as to where people can find that conversation if they want to listen to that kind of conversation?
So thank you, guys. So 275 of my podcast, the Andy Social Podcast, and what it is Tim, so Lord Tim and our band and myself, we sat down and had a conversation, which we initially thought would just go for an hour, and we would just go through each of the tracks on the Covers album and just talk about the stories and go back and forth. And, we hadn't actually caught up for a long time either. So it was a bit of a novelty for us just to be talking. Like we've just been texting and on group chats and things like that for the past 12 months or so. We haven't actually had a conversation. And we haven't been in the same room since July 2019. It was just, it's a very weird thing.
Wow.
But so it was a bit of catching up to do, but we really focused on the album and going through the songs. And before we knew it, we spoke for 2 hours. And so Tim's like, oh, geez, okay, this is not what I was hoping to do, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, we've got it. So what do we do with it? So we decided to split just to chop it down to 1 hour for my podcast. So you can listen to half of it. It's not quite half. We just chopped out some songs in between. And that's on my podcast. But on our Bandcamp page, which is the main sort of place that we're selling all of our music, you can get whatever you buy that relates to Undercovers. You'll get a digital download of the album. So there's merch, there's CDs, and there's all that sort of stuff. But you'll always get a digital download, and the digital download will have all 23 cover songs, and it will also have the full 2+ hours of Tim and I waffling on, telling silly stories about all the songs from the Covers album. And I enjoy listening to it, even though it's my voice, and I'm kind of like, oh, it's kind of a bit weird. But just to reminisce and reflect on the stories, there's a lot of great memories from over the years, and so I've got a lot out of it just going through that process. But it appears a lot of people really enjoy it as well. So it's a little bit of extra value add as well. I think I'm sure we'll talk about it as we go, but we want to make as much of it exclusive to Bandcamp as possible, instead of just the usual thing that bands do and just make everything available on streaming platforms and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's gone really well.
Cool, fantastic. Some of those points we'll be discussing a lot more, because I really want to try and analyze Undercovers Volume 1 through a business or a money kind of a lens, if that's all right.
Sure. Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
so first question, and allow me to set this one up a bit. I've played covers with a band. So have various other people who've played covers in a band, who've performed covers for a live crowd. Some of them, including us, we've gone on and we've recorded covers for tribute albums or something of that sort. And we didn't really secure rights or permissions or licenses or anything of that sort. While producing a TV show, I learned that even though you don't feature a lot of the covers that are going to be filmed or something of that sort, our legal teams made sure to get licenses and approval forms from the labels. Now, while planning a covers album that's actually going to be released and sold, or like, with all your compilation of covers through the years itself, do you guys have to secure rights or licenses to the songs, or are there any legal hurdles that you guys have to face?
Yeah, there's a few licenses that we have to secure. And one of the things that we found out very quickly is, well, it's quite funny thinking about this now, because when we committed to the project and started to just put everything together, we realized really quickly that this might have been the worst decision that we could possibly make. Like, this is not financially viable. This is a complete time waster. And we don't even know whether people are actually going to care about this release. So there's a lot of licensing that you have to do based on how you prepared to release it. So part of this is we did a limited edition CD run with only had a few tracks. Originally, we were going to do a double CD with everything on there, but we realized that the licensing to have 23 tracks across 2 CDs and then printed by X amount, selling it at whatever cost, there's always calculations that they work it out. The fees were just crazy, and we had no confidence that we'd be able to sell that many CDs to recoup the costs, let alone hopefully make some sort of profit out of it. So we decided to scale it back and only put 8 songs, and we made it limited edition. We hand numbered the CDs just to make it a bit of a collector's item that you can put on your shelf. And that still cost a little bit of money. That wasn't too bad. But then we also had to secure digital licenses as well for it to go on streaming platforms. And there was a lot of unique sort of licensing codes that we had to do for every single song. We had to, I'm sure this is probably common ground for a lot of artists out there, but just understanding all the publishing, all the songwriting credentials for every single song, and making sure they're logged properly with, we've got a music organisation here called APRA in AMCOS, and they sort of register all the songwriting royalties and make sure that fees are dispersed to songwriters and publishers. So we had to make sure that that was all registered with them. So a lot of paperwork, and I wouldn't say that it was super expensive, but it was enough money where it could potentially become annoying, and especially when we had no confidence that we just thought it was just going to be something that we will sell. A few people, like our core fans, might buy it, but then it might just sit like on my shelves down here with a bunch of my other Lord merchandise and stuff like that, and eventually we'll sell a few more at gigs and things like that. But obviously it's worked out really well. So yes, and it's important to do it, because I think what we've learned over the years is that as recording artists ourselves and songwriters, we're all registered with these organizations. And so what we hope maybe one day is that some amazing artist out there who's got a huge following will decide to cover one of our songs, and we may reap the benefits of that. And it's, for us, it's like, it's just doing the right thing. We would hate to be on the other side of it, where we see somebody taking advantage of a song that we've put our blood, sweat and tears into, and we don't see any of that credit or financial, reward, or whatever that might be. So I wouldn't scare people away from it. There is a bit of a process to it, and it's not just a case. And I think many years ago you probably could get away with it a bit more. I don't think there's much regulation around it, but these days it's getting harder and harder just to slip through the cracks and just put a random cover song out and just cross your fingers and hope that it's going to be okay. So yeah, I just remember, like, at the start of this process, and Tim in particular was just going, this is the worst idea we possibly could have done. Why did we bother doing this? We should have just I don't know, written a couple of new songs and put another EP out or something like that. This is crazy. And luckily we persevered through it.
Yeah. So, since we're talking formats, right? Something we found super interesting is that, you had 23 songs that were only purchased through Bandcamp. You've got the CD, vinyl, and other formats, which, we get the space restriction. So there'll be the 8 tracks. But why limit streaming platforms to 11 songs? What's the rationale behind that? Is there like separate licensing fees?
Yeah, there is. There is
Okay.
to do that, to put them on streaming services. But that wasn't a big issue. I think for us, it was a strategic move. And my knee-jerk reaction was to say, really, I just want to piss off as many people as possible. Like, I just want to get people upset. It's been a really good talking point for us, if anything. And I didn't quite think about it this way until we actually started to promote it and put it out there. But the whole point for us, and we learned quite a while ago when we moved over to Bandcamp, is that Bandcamp should be paying me some money for this, because I'm just going to be promoting them all the time. But they are, in my opinion, the best e-commerce platform for musicians in the world. There is nothing that comes near them. There are other e-commerce platforms out there that may be cheaper. They might have, smaller fees, but they don't specialize in music and have the tools and the resources that Bandcamp has. We learned really quickly how valuable this platform is for us. The fact that just alone that people can put, like, we'll set like a CD, we'll sell a CD for 20 Australian dollars, and a hardcore fan of ours will go, well, I value that more than $20, so I'm going to give you $50. And we just go, why would you give us $50 for the CD? And it's like, well, I'm allowed to. I've been given the opportunity to, and I'll give you more. It's like giving someone a tip. And that straight away was like, this is a game changer for us. And we started to see that music fans aren't actually cheap and don't want everything for free. They actually want to support artists. So that alone, and I think also with Bandcamp being integrated into Australian music charts, and I'm sure they've got a similar sort of thing set up in other markets around the world as well, and a number of other things that they've got in the back end that are really, really handy and helpful with pre-releasing, setting up campaigns, having a nice, easy user face so people can walk through the releases and see the accompanied apparel and merchandise. And a lot of people are familiar with it. It's a popular platform. So you want to go where people are familiar. You don't want people to go somewhere new where they have to sign up to a new thing and they don't know it, because you're just going to lose people straight away. So long explanation, but all these reasons, we just kept saying we need to keep bringing people back to Bandcamp all the time. And it doesn't matter how popular Spotify is or Apple Music or any of the other streaming platforms are. They're great. But instead of putting all of our eggs in one basket, we're going to use the streaming platforms as an advertisement platform. It's a teaser. It's a way to sort of get a taste of what the band's all about. And if they want more, then they can cross the chasm and come into Bandcamp, and we can reward them with exclusive stuff that you can't get anywhere else. And it's still a bit of a new experiment for us, but we've seen that this has worked really, really well. And some of the stuff that we've got in the pipeline, again, will not be on streaming services. It'll be exclusive to Bandcamp, and your casual music fans will be upset about that. I've already had people like going, this is ridiculous. You're talking about a 23-track album and I've only got 11 in front of me. What's the go? Or I always buy my albums through Amazon and I can only get 11 tracks. This is bullshit. And I'm like, well, sorry, but go to Bandcamp. Like, it's pretty simple. Like, so, and it's just a case of just, you eventually see people's behavior change. And I'm hoping a bunch of other bands sort of jump on the bandwagon and do something similar and just really have a hub where you can take care of your fans and go, look, if you come to us and stay with us, we'll reward you. We'll give you things that no one else can get. You can't just go and click on an artist page on the streaming services and just expect to get everything straight away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So since we're talking Bandcamp, what's the highest someone's forked up for Undercovers Volume 1?
It's been nothing crazy. I think someone, because the way we've been doing it is we've got the digital only.
Yeah.
And then I made a decision that I wasn't going to sell CDs on their own. So you had to get a CD and a T-shirt together, which once again, a couple people out there weren't too happy about that, but most people agreed and they were happy enough. So with the digital album, I think someone paid $50 for the digital album, which was really nice. So I think, there's a lot of content in there, but it's still a lot of money to pay for digital files when, we're so used to just getting things for free. And then the T-shirt and the CD pack, I think, I don't know, we were selling it for about 35 Australian dollars, and I think someone paid double, and that's pretty cool. Most people we find give us like $1 or $2 extra on top, which might seem like nothing, but when you get a lot of people doing that, it's unexpected extra income for the band. It's super cool. So it's nice that we don't have to ask people. We just give them the opportunity to make that decision themselves. We just say, look, this is what it costs, but there is an option here. Hey, if you want to sling us a couple of extra dollars, then by all means, we're not going to say no. And we don't have to have that awkward conversation with them either.
Okay, and since you have the data for it, any countries that are purchasing the album that really surprised you? Like, have you got to buy from, I don't know, Iceland?
No, not yet. We might have to target Iceland. Yeah. I'm just trying to think of surprises. I mean, the US for us is probably the second biggest market after Australia. And then it goes to Germany. I'm just trying to think of... actually, one country that is always stuck around, but I've seen a decent spike is Switzerland. We get a lot of people from Switzerland now, and I don't know whether it's just this collection of, like, a very small group of fans that we've had in Switzerland for years. We've never played there. We'd love to go there. But for whatever reason, they've followed us and supported us for quite a few years. And I don't know if they're just out there telling all their friends, but there's more and more people from Switzerland that are signing up and buying our merch and paying like crazy prices for stuff to be shipped to the other side of the world. And that's really cool, because I mean, I know Switzerland, that, you know, they definitely love their metal and their rock, but it is a small country in comparison to the rest of the world. And just to see that sort of reaction is really cool. Like, I had an email last night, in fact, from some random person in Switzerland, never connected with before, and just said, tell me every album that you have. I want to buy them all, and tell me how much shipping is to Switzerland. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, talk about making me work. I mean, it's a good problem to have. But I've gone through my shelves, I'm going through my list, going, okay, I've this. Okay, this is out of stock, going about that. And so I'm doing these calculations, and we're back and forth on email, and I've got to go to the post office later on and ship out a big bloody order to Switzerland. And it's fantastic. So there you go.
Excellent. Okay, next question. How did you guys end up selecting the Prime 8 for the CD and the 11 for Apple Music or other streaming platforms? Was the selection a result of any data-backed decisions? Like, I'm imagining the three of you poring over data that goes like, okay, guys who listen to Wasp don't buy CDs anymore, but guys who listen to Kylie Minogue do.
Just imagine we're all around like a whiteboard, just like, you know, with the glasses on, going, okay, calculations. Unfortunately, it wasn't that analytical. However, I think with the CD in particular, actually no, CD and streaming, we wanted to pick the songs that had the best production. So stuff that for the most part was recorded sort of in more recent years, or songs that were recorded in an album session where we already had everything sort of set up. Because what you'll find with a lot of the other tracks, they're either live songs or like bootleggy kind of live songs, or it'll be studio tests. So we used to do a lot of studio testing. So we'd record a cover in the studio just to test the equipment before we go in and record an album. So they're a bit rough around the edges. The mixes aren't great. So there's a bunch of covers like that, all rush jobs, like ones that we just recorded really, really quickly, and we just didn't have time to polish them up. So we left them on the Bandcamp. And I think for most listeners, you'll never hear the difference. It's just us. Like we just know the stories behind it. We're like, oh, I don't know if that's going to be the best place for them to go. So we just made sure that ones that we were the most happy with from a production point of view. And I think there's also a combination of what was going to be best known by the majority of people as well. So like we covered Queensryche, The Whisper, which for me, I love it. It's so good. It's from one of my favorite Queensryche albums. And for me, I would have loved to have shared that like from Spotify and get all the Queensryche fans going nuts. But I knew that song, in the grand scheme of things, probably wouldn't have the same punch as, you know, Priest or Iron Maiden or some of the Aussie guys as well. And we also made the decision to change the track listing, which you said, from streaming and CD. And I mean, Tim ended up making this decision, but I'm pretty sure, I don't think there was too much science behind it. I think it was more of a case of, let's just mix it all up. So if you're getting streaming, you get this. If you get the CD, you get this. If you're going to get Bandcamp, you get everything. And just try to make everything slightly unique again along the way. In the end, you're all getting the same songs in some different way or another. But just to try and make everything just a little bit individual along the way. So, and once again, few people out there too confused, don't understand it, having a little bit of a whinge about it, but that's okay. They're the minority. Most people are pretty pumped and happy about it.
Yeah, like you're talking about most people. I'm going to tell you what I felt last night while I was looking it up. I go to the website and I see 46 tracks, and I was like, wait, did Curtis do something wrong by sending me only 23? And then I'm like, okay, I'm a bit sleepy, or I haven't read this properly. There's intro tracks. I was like, okay, that's why it's Bandcamp exclusive. But
and also just really quickly on that, so we were thinking about having that 2-hour podcast separate. So it would just be you would download the 23 tracks in order, and then you would have it separate. But then we thought, because we're talking about these songs song after song, we thought it might be more powerful that people could actually hear the story, hear the song, and then just do that in that order. So then people start to appreciate the individual tracks a little bit more. You hear the commentary, and I could imagine, like, especially for me being a music fan, I think my initial reaction might be, like, it's a bit annoying. Like, I just want to listen to the album. I don't want to listen to all this talking in between. This is annoying. But I guess, in the end, you can sort of make your own playlist and get rid of all that waffling.
Yeah, this is like the director's commentary along with it or something.
Yeah, that's right.
The movie.
Yeah.
But, having done all of this, right, and now you're looking at some of the data a week, 10 days post-release.
Yep.
I have to ask you, at this point, doing a covers album, did it prove to be more of a financial challenge than the original studio album? If you had to record one, why and why not?
The good thing about the covers album was that a lot of it was done over the years. So we didn't have to just go in and say, hey, we're going to record 23 tracks. There were 2 songs in particular, which was the Savage Garden track and the Judas Priest cover of Reckless, that we recorded more recently for the purpose of this release. But everything else was more, we still had to put time in because we had to go and remaster, remix everything to make sure that there's some sort of consistency across the release from a sound perspective. So the money side of that, traditionally, like going into the studio time and all that sort of stuff, we didn't have to worry about that as much. And I think the time invested to get it together was far less than Fallen Idols. So I think from that perspective, Fallen Idols was far more of a financial sort of uphill battle to get it all together, the time, the resources, and the cost. I think with Undercovers, it's relative to what the type of release is, because Undercovers was an absolute pain in the context of something that we thought was going to be very easy and we could just slap it together, and we realized it wasn't. And I think if we had the same amount of paperwork and headache with Fallen Idols, we probably wouldn't have noticed it as much, because we already had all this other paperwork and headache that we had to do to try and get this entire album together from nothing to something. So I think Fallen Idols is definitely a more difficult thing to put together. And what we're noticing now is we've got some ideas for another album. We haven't quite started demoing yet, but we already know it's going to be like a painful exercise. It's never easy getting music together, and we're happy when it's done. But Tim's ready to like quit life by the end of it. He's just like, I don't want to hear anything from this band ever again, especially this album. I don't want to talk to you guys. Blah, blah. It's like, all right, give him some space for a few weeks. He'll calm down. We'll be fine. But so I think studio albums, original music is, in the grand scheme of things, it's a tougher task and financially more of a commitment.
All right. So this is the point where, we want all the bands to kind of focus or pay attention to the marketing, because in today's time, it's just as important to, ensure that the band markets its product, right?
Yeah.
So what's your marketing mix like? I mean, which platforms do you spend more money or your time on, and what's working for you?
Yeah. We spent no money on social media at all. I made the decision this time around, and I think maybe it was a mistake to make, because I just underestimated this release, and I just thought, you know what, we're going to keep money low. We're going to keep the budget really low. But I think in hindsight, it probably wouldn't have made much of a difference. So I know, like, sort of boosted posts and Facebook advertising can be really hit and miss, and more than often miss. It's really, really tough to sort of get those things to work, and you need the right kind of content to make it really successful. But who knows now? I might actually, now that this is a topic in my mind that's been put in my mind, thanks, Peter, I'm gonna go away and probably drop some coin on a Facebook ad for something. But anyway, I'll come back to that one later.
Well, at least I'm hoping you don't join TikTok and you have like someone.
No. I haven't quite got there yet. But look, never say never. I've got to keep an open mind to things.
That's what Darren Hayes can do.
There's it. There you go.
Ding, 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 ding. Okay, all right. I know what I'm doing after this chat. I'm going to go and send him a message on Twitter again. Darren, you mentioned before. What can you do to help? Okay. TikTok. But yeah, we haven't spent any money on the platforms. And a big thing, I guess, maybe it's an advantage because I've been doing it for so many years. I've got a lot of great organic reach across the platforms, and the band has relatively good reach as well. And I think I've just really sort of lent into the style of the platform and played to its preference rather than me trying to, like you see a lot of bands, they use one of those third-party apps where they'll just post the content in there and it automatically distributes it across Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And it just, you can see that it doesn't translate properly. It doesn't work. Yeah. The messaging doesn't work because it's not, the purpose of the platform changes every single time. So obviously Facebook, there's a lot of good reach. You can write a little bit more and you can be a little bit more storytelling. And so that works really well. Twitter is a lot more sort of comments and quick firing things. And so you can make a few statements and just tweet some stuff out and retweet stuff and be interactive, a little bit more engaging. And Instagram's obviously a very visual thing, and it's fantastic that you can share Spotify tracks and Apple Music tracks into the Insta stories and share a lot of those posts, and you can work out ways to sort of get people to share each other's posts in a really sort of constructive way. But for me, like it's not terribly interesting. It's very basic, organic, grassroots, manual, tedious, direct messaging, engagement, replying to every single comment, liking and love hearting and retweeting and all that sort of stuff to make sure that when people make the effort to engage with us, that we return the favor to them. And that's been a massive advantage for us to be able to get word out and make people feel like excited about what we're doing. Like it's not, part of me just thinks, why would you care about what we do? I mean, you might like a couple of songs here and there, but why would you make the effort to share our music around to other people? And then you realize that you get excited, and if you feel like you're part of it and you're helping to make this thing bigger than what it is, then people feel motivated to want to retweet something or to share it or comment or whatever it might be. And you don't have to sort of just plead and ask, oh, can you please share this or whatever it might be. So a lot of it's been just very organic stuff, and it's worked really well. And then apart from that, just from a marketing perspective, obviously from a PR point of view, yes, you mentioned before Curtis Dewar. He's helped us with a bit of the international PR stuff. A lot of the local stuff I've more or less handled myself, just due to knowing the market and knowing the contacts, and that's certainly helped. And a lot of getting feelers, like not worrying about what people saying no. And I'm hitting people up directly that are in, higher places, people that have got a little bit of a reputation, and just saying, hey, have you heard this? Like, I've gone through all the artists who are somewhat active on social media that we've covered on the album, and I've messaged them all or sent emails through to their management, and I've just said, just a heads up, like if you're interested and you want a bit of a laugh, like here's this, we're a heavy metal band from Australia and we've covered your song, now have a listen to it. And then I followed up and said, oh, by the way, we're potentially going to be in the top 15 for the ARIAs. And then I followed up again and said, just an update, we're number 7 and number 1. And so that's what I was doing this morning, and just circling back, and some people are coming back and saying, hey, well done. And I'm thinking, did you listen to it? Are you going to share something? Is something more? But the fact that they've come back and acknowledged that's really cool. So I'm just there's a lot of this is like not having any fear and just being just getting out there and just trying it, just messaging people and saying, hey, just if you're interested, here's some stuff, here's some information, we're thinking of you, and just go from there. So it's I guess it's not, there's not a lot of science behind it. It's just a lot of grit.
Yeah. But one thing I've noticed, and you've been posting quite a bit of it recently, is the Lord Facebook page has a bit of organic traffic that keeps coming in from people who are Christian, I'm guessing. What's the crossover of Christians to, heavy metal fans who end up liking the band?
Look, I mean, to be honest, I don't know how many of these I mean, we haven't done a poll across our fan base about what their faith is if they've got one. I mean, I think one of the craziest things we've ever done is call the band Lord. I mean, it's just, talk about, it's the hardest band to search for on the internet. I mean, there's a number of other bands. You've got Lord from New Zealand with the E on the end. You've got Lordi in Finland. You've got Lord from Hungary, which are the biggest nightmare for us. I mean, fantastic music, amazing band. They've been around since the 70s, but the amount of Hungarian people that message us saying, can you please like dedicate this song to my son or my daughter or whatever? I'm like, can you see that we look nothing like these aging rockers that sing in Hungarian? We're a heavy metal band. Like there's nothing even similar apart from the name. So anyway, we get a lot of that, but yes, I think we get a lot of people from Southeast Asia, in Indonesia, Malaysia, I think Philippines, sorry, and also in parts of Africa as well, where I don't know if they're just getting used to Facebook. They don't understand how it works, but they're tagging Lord in these prayer services. They're like doing tributes to people and talking about God, and they tag us in it. And it's an absolute nightmare. I've got to keep going in and removing the tags all the time because they just keep showing up on the feed. However, sometimes you get some really funny ones. And for me, from a marketing point of view, it's great content. So every once in a while, if people are following me, I might do it on my Insta stories sometimes, because sometimes it's just easy to do it through mine rather than the band. And I'll just share like weird direct messages that we get from people, just odd stuff. Yeah, so people messaging through and thinking that they're actually speaking to God. And we're just like, what is this? Like, are you crazy? Like, maybe they are. So it does make good content. So we try to embrace the humor of it rather than being frustrated, because I mean, in the end, we picked the band name. I mean, we deserve the hassle, because it's just it's such a problematic name.
Okay, cool. Now, since we're talking marketing, I must say that a covers album itself is a bloody great way to market the band and introduce the band to a new audience. So what's the probability for someone to listen to a cover of a Savage Garden song and discover the band through that route versus discovering the band through its original music? Where do you stand on that? Is it completely different audiences?
Yeah, I think so. A good example is the Kylie Minogue track that we put out about 10 years ago. And we did it just purely as a joke, and it wasn't because we were being strategic or anything. We just thought we think we could do a good version of this, and we think people would think it was funny. And it went so well. And even to this day, like I did an interview yesterday for Monica Strutt, who is now a journalist for Maniacs magazine in Australia. There's like fantastic zine. And she admitted, she discovered us from the Kylie Minogue cover. And this story has just been repetitive like over the past 10 years. Our fan base has grown considerably from that song alone. And it makes me think, because at times I thought it's kind of like candy, like you can't have too much of it, and sometimes you attract the wrong things. And so if you put covers out there, you might get a lot of attention, but the people that will find that interesting and exciting aren't the people that usually will stick around and are music enthusiasts or people that are really passionate about music. But we've been proven otherwise. We've had a lot of music fans that just never had the chance to listen to us, or seen the name and just haven't bothered to click on a song, and finally here's the reason to be curious, and as a result they like it, then they start their journey. And I'm quietly confident. I mean, we've already had people that go, I can't believe I've never heard of you guys before. I'm like, what? We've been around for like 30 years as a band as a whole, but Lord, we're getting closer to 20 years, and it's just insane that people are still discovering us. And I don't get upset. I'm amazed and excited, because there's always opportunities. So it's early days, but we're already seeing people, the same thing starting to happen with the Savage Garden cover, and hopefully with some of these other songs, as they get a bit of a rotation, we'll make some new friends.
Yeah, and if you haven't already, do check out the video that they did for On a Night Like This, because it's bloody hilarious. I still remember the first time I watched it, and I was like, wait, this is the guy Andy that I'm chatting with.
It's ridiculous, and we once again, we did it as a joke. We didn't expect anything to really happen, and funnily enough, at the timeline of that, we recorded that song on an EP in 2008. And it was a throwaway track. It was like a B-side for an EP, and people started to like it, and we decided to include it as a bonus track on Set in Stone. which was the following year. And then it wasn't until another year later after that we actually filmed a video clip, because enough people were talking about it. And we just thought, we've gotten to the habit of doing all these video clips. Let's do a song for Kylie. And we've kind of got a couple of crazy ideas. And then we didn't expect it just blew up after that. And we were laughing because like this song's been out for 2 years. Like, why are people suddenly caring now? And obviously the video clip just attracted, like, people go, I've never heard this song before. So it's been really good. So not to reveal too much, but we're going to take a similar approach with Savage Garden.
Nice.
We've started filming some stuff around Sydney. We've had a couple of delays. We were meant to have something out by now, but over the coming weeks we'll have something out. It won't be silly like Kylie, but it'll be hopefully something clever and kind of cool, and sort of gives a bit of a tip of the hat to the guys from Savage Garden, and just give that vibe, and hopefully just wins over a few more people. So Tim's probably got like going, why are you telling people this, Andy? But anyway, there you go. So we're filming a video.
Awesome. All right. So, we've spoken enough business. Since we've talked so much about the album, let's play a song from it, and then we can get back to chatting about the music. So, Andy,
Sure.
Which song should we play and why?
Well, I think let's steer away from the novelty of pop songs for a moment, and let's go with "Judas Be My Guide" by Iron Maiden.
Fucking nice.
Because I think like one thing that I have to keep reminding myself and everyone else is that we're metalheads. We're a metal band, and there's no denying that, and we celebrate heavy metal as much as we can. So there's plenty of metal on this album, as well as the novelty of some cool pop songs. But this track in particular is so underrated. It's from one of my favorite Maiden albums, which a lot of people don't like, but I think it's my second favorite after Somewhere in Time. And This track is it's a killer track, and it's just often forgotten. It's neglected by the band themselves. And I just hope that we can sort of give it a boost and give it a bit more love. But I think we've done a pretty good job of it.
We live in a world of dark
of course, Andy, we had to talk to you about your fabulous rendition of I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight. You surely must have fought to get that song on the CD, right? Why didn't it make it?
So it was on the list. I mean, I never expected to sing it. It was just crazy. And they haven't let me back in front of a mic again to do a song on my own again. So I don't know whether they were. Anyway, I might be taking too much attention away from Tim. But the song itself, like, we're all fans of the original. We really, really love the song. It's a great 80s ballad. It's got that cool 80s misty vibe to it. And it's been on the list. And I think Tim actually started to work on the vocals himself. So we sort of had the music recorded, and it was intended for him to sing. And he went through a few takes, and he just couldn't. He felt that he wasn't doing it justice, and he didn't have the right voice for it. And I don't know whether it was me that suggested it or whether he did. I can't remember. I really don't know. But I think we talked about actually a lot of us singing. So we'd done a few demos years and years ago. In fact, there is a song. I don't know where it's gone. It's so funny. I don't know where it's gone. I mean, it's a digital file. It's sitting on someone's computer somewhere on a hard drive. But there's our original drummer, T.Y., Tim Yatras. We were doing some studio testing, and he actually sang "Rocket" by Def Leppard.
Wow.
Just to test, like, the thing. And like when we listened to it was like, oh, you know, it's really rough around the edges, because we literally just went in there and just had a go. But I think that sort of gave Tim an idea, like LT and our band an idea, thinking, why do I have to be the lead singer all the time? Why can't the other guys step up? Kind of like a Kiss thing, you know, the Kiss guys every once in a while sang their own songs. And we haven't quite got to that in original music, but from a cover point of view, I think this is one of the first opportunities where Tim thought, stuff it. Let's just give Andy a go and see what he can do with it. And if he does it justice, then, you know, if it doesn't work, then we'll put it on the shelf, and we'll come back to it another time. And well, everyone was happy with it, so came out, and now I don't think I'm a singer, but I think it sounds okay. Yeah.
All right. So, one of the things, I mean, you're proudly an Australian band. So I have to ask you, how come there's no AC/DC track on there?
Yeah, good question.
Or it's like unreleased.
No. Well,
or it's like we don't want to touch them.
Yeah, it's a weird one, because it'll definitely, if we were going to do AC/DC, we would have to be really careful with how we did it, because they are a very different style of music to us. They're not slick at all. It's very, I mean, we always use the term meat and potatoes. It's very sort of simple. There's nothing fancy about it. But when things sound so simple, they also become very complicated. And the reason why they sound the way that they do is years and years of repetition. They've got unique tones, like Angus is so unique. Brian or Bon, those guys they're very hard to emulate. And we certainly wouldn't want to emulate it, because it just sounds weird, like us just playing an AC/DC song and Tim trying to sound like Bon Scott or Brian Johnson. It'd be really weird. So I think if we're going to do a song from anywhere in that back catalogue, I think I'm really thinking on the fly here, it would have to be something from their mid to late 80s, I think, where they had just a little bit of an 80s vibe going in some of their tracks. It was more or less the same sort of stuff. I mean, if you're really just listening, it's just AC/DC from start to finish. But there's a little bit of nuance in the 80s there, and there's a couple of songs that have got a little bit more of a melodic chorus that's a bit removed from AC/DC, and I think those would be the songs that you'd probably have to target. But yeah, it's not on the cards, but now that you say it, it's just, I mean, this is all it takes. Literally, people just say you should cover that song, or you should think about covering a song by that band. I mean, everyone's talking about the Wiggles at the moment, because the Wiggles were higher than us on the ARIA charts, and now we're all in our Slack group chat talking about Wiggles covers. It's silly. Like, I mean, whether it happens or not, it's another story. But it all comes from ideas and people just planting these seeds, and we just take it and run with it. So, Peter, never say never.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I think
Peter would be the happiest, right, with the Wiggles cover by Lord?
Well, that's the easiest way to get my son into metal, considering the amount of Wiggles I've heard in the last couple of years.
The business side of me, that's a cash grab right there. That's a way to make some money. So maybe volume 2.
Move over Metal Lullabies. It's time for Metal Wiggles.
That's right.
Okay, so clearly, since this one's named Undercovers Volume 1, there's bound to be a volume 2 at some point, right? What's the plan?
Initially, I wasn't too happy with volume 1 being the title. I just wanted to be Undercovers, because I said, we're setting ourselves up to fail. People are just going to expect there's going to be more of them. And Tim's like, well, like, we've got 6 or 7 covers that are half finished, like, already. So we've got to do something with them anyway. So, and I'm like, okay, all right. And I'm glad we did, because it is keeping people sort of thinking, going, oh, what's next? So Tim had a little bit more forward, like, sort of foresight than I did at the time. But we've got a handful of songs that were meant to be bonus tracks on Fallen Idols, or we're going to release them last year with Chaos Reigning, and before the covers album was even a thing. But we just ran out of time with studio work. We tracked some drums, we did some basic sort of guitars and things like that. But then we just ran out of time. So we just, like a lot of things we've done over the years, we sort of just pack them away, and then we'll come back to them when the next sessions sort of open up, and we'll see whether there's an opportunity to finish off some of these songs. So there's a few cool covers in there. There's some more Australian stuff in there. I think for us, the Australian stuff's really important, because I think the next generation of music fans need to celebrate a lot of these artists. And I think a lot of these bands in Australia have become like the old fogies, just doing the local clubs, and that's about it. And a lot of the younger generation, especially metal fans and rock fans, they're not big fans of like the old Australian music. And I think for us, you just got to keep celebrating it. And it's a great way for us to get recognition in our own country. But at the same time, there are a lot of larger or international artists that are on our list, and we've started to dabble in. So the list is crazy. It's like, so yeah, volume 2 will eventually happen. I think we'll put another proper album out beforehand, before volume 2 happens. It'll be a while down the track, but yeah, there'll definitely be more. We can't help ourselves.
Okay, cool. So here's the final question about covers as such then. Here in India, among the metal circles and among metal circles globally, especially when you talk to metal purists, there's always this debate about a band performing covers versus performing original music. Have you faced any flack for the covers over the years?
A little bit.
Where do you stand on that covers versus original thing?
Yeah. A little bit. I mean, I think even now, like with all the attention that we're getting, I know for a fact that there are people I know very well that won't be too impressed by this, and they'll just say, "Oh, the only reason they're doing so well is they're just taking the easy road and just doing a bunch of covers." And they're kind of right in a way. Like it is like it's been a really easy process to get some cover songs out there, and that's the reason why it's getting the attention that it's getting, like we mentioned earlier. I think it all comes down to intent and the conviction behind what you decide to do. And I think if people are deliberately just doing covers with nothing else to back up, and they're putting all their eggs into that basket, then you might win a few people over, but you're not going to hold them and keep them for a long time. And I think the thing that saves us along the way, and why we can get away with recording so many covers, is that, at least in my opinion, we can back it up with our own music. Like our own music, I think, is pretty good as well. So it sort of helps to say, like, yeah, sure. Like, I mean, take away our covers. Like, if you don't want to listen to our covers and you think our covers suck, I mean, listen to our original music. It holds up. It's not like I'm just trying to think of some of those one-hit wonders from the US in the 90s. Like, it was like Alien Ant Farm. They did that Smooth Criminal cover. And there's a few other ones, like really sort of, there's a band called Orgy that were like new metal, and they did Blue Monday or something. But you never heard like the rest of their albums. Like maybe you might have heard another song. They may have tried to back it up with another single. But the rest of the songs were completely neglected. And when you listen to them, just not as much effort was put into their original music in comparison to the cover songs, because that's what the labels wanted. They wanted them to put all their eggs in one basket. So I think it just comes down to your intention. I think if it's like social media and marketing. If you're genuine and you're authentic about what you're doing, and you're kind of transparent and people understand where you're coming from, then I think most people will be forgiving and want and enjoy it and understand the reason. But I think if you're trying to fabricate something and you're using that as a way to mask your inability to write a good original song, then it's only going to last so long. And so so I think more power to bands. I think more bands should get out there and play covers. I think in live shows, mix it up, throw a bunch of covers in your set. It doesn't have to be just one song or no songs. Like throw a whole bunch in there and mix it up. It's just a case of being being clear about why you're doing what you're doing and making sure that people understand that as well. And that's all it takes.
So yeah, quick questions outside of Undercovers. Australia is one of the few places in the world where live gigs are back. And a couple of days ago, I saw, Australian band announce, Pan Australia tour. So what's the plan with Lord? Do you guys want to hit the road soon?
Yeah, the last few weeks, like the last week in particular, has been really crazy for us. I think it's just changed everything, all the plans, because going into this year, just because everything's been so uncertain, we made the decision that we weren't going to play this year. Just play it safe. We'll stick to recording, put this covers album out and start to record like the next album and just work behind the scenes, which for me, like I wasn't entirely happy about. I'm itching to get back out, but at the same time, you don't want to risk it. There's just too many variables, whether it be financial or health and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, like it's opened back up. There's a lot of gigs that are starting to happen, tours getting announced. We're really lucky in Australia. I mean, we haven't got vaccines yet, won't get into that. That's a crazy sort of government stuff, politics. But apart from that, we've more or less got a normal life here, and we're so lucky in comparison to other parts of the world. I'm sure you guys just have been going through absolute hell over there with a lot of the stuff happening. So I think just in the last week, and in particular the last few days of the success that we've had with Undercovers, we're now thinking, okay, well, can we do something? And if we technically can, then when can we do it? So nothing's been decided yet. So I'd probably be in a lot of trouble if I start saying, yeah, we're going to go back out and play some shows. But we're actually talking about it in a constructive way now, where it could be a possibility sometime this year. It'll be just in Australia. They just opened up a travel bubble with us in New Zealand. But I think it's a bit weird because at any time there could be an outbreak and then you just get cut off and you're either stuck in New Zealand or you have to quarantine, and it's a lot of money. So I think for us, if we do tour, it'll be in Australia, and we'll try to make the most of getting around our country and then just wait for the rest of the world to slowly open back up again. But yeah, I don't know. For me personally, we haven't played since July 2019, and it was only about 2 weeks ago that the three of us, Mark, Tim, and I, were standing together in the same room, looking at each other. And it was the first time we'd seen each other since that last show in July of 2019. It was just really weird, and so for me personally, I want to get back. I want that feeling of playing on stage with them. Interacting with people, playing the songs, all that sort of stuff. So we'll see. But I think doing this stuff and the release, the Undercovers release, has been a really good way to keep me sane, because I've got things to do. I can keep busy and keep doing band stuff. I'm not just sort of sitting here looking at a wall going, oh, when can I be able to do something? I can do something. So we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully later this year.
All right. Now, I only know of this because you tweeted at me and you said that this was only exclusive to your Patreon. So I'm going to put you on the spot here and maybe take a sip of water, clear up your throat. So you know what's coming next. So you did an a cappella version of the Savage Garden track, I Want You. Do you want to give it another stab for our listeners? Or maybe another song of your choice? Come on. Maybe... which one did you sing?
Peter, you got me all embarrassed now. I think
or maybe just come on. Look, I Just Died in Your Arms.
I won't. Usually what I do is that I get the karaoke tracks off YouTube and I'll just sing the karaoke tracks, but just to give some context.
Guilty as fuck. Yeah, I've done the same thing so many times.
Yeah. So I've got a Patreon for my podcast, and so I have a bunch of people that support me on there. It's fantastic. And one of the things I do, just for like an absolute joke, it's just a bit of fun, is I do a weekly podcast, and it goes for about an hour, and I talk about what's going on in my life, some band-related stuff, some podcast-related stuff. I find weird stories on the internet. I tell a story. I've got this fascination with weird sort of like planes and vehicles from all over the sort of the world over the past several decades. I call it planes, trains, and Andymobiles. And then I've got all these old TV commercials from like the 80s and the 90s that I put in like segments. So it's almost like you're listening to a TV program. But at the beginning and the end, I've got to introduce the show. So I usually come in with a song. It's kind of like the old variety shows where there's someone come out and start singing before the show starts. Well, I do that with karaoke. So I pick a karaoke track at the start and I do one at the end. And that particular one, Peter, was Savage Garden. And I deliberately, look, it's going to sound so stupid. I deliberately sing it in a particular way that's amusing. So, I mean, people might go, yeah, right. Like that's your real singing voice. But trust me, I think I can sing a little bit better than what I do on the karaoke tracks. But I try to do a very Aussie, ochre, horrible sort of karaoke version. And it's a lot of fun. So actually, a good thing to plug is that every once in a while, I'll make one of those Patreon episodes public on my Andy social feed, just so people can get a taste of what it's all about. And I did that today. So today's episode of Patreon, I've just decided to make it public for everybody. And I decided to pick 2 covers from our covers album. And I did Send Me an Angel by Real Life, and I did On a Night Like This by Kylie Minogue at the beginning and the end. So if you want to hear another version again of those covers, can't probably be good. But if you want to hear another version, then you can listen to that Patreon episode. It's episode 50 on my Andy Social podcast, and good luck to you.
Something more to look forward to. Lord Andy, you don't ever stop giving.
Yeah.
But everything I do, honestly, is for my own amusement. Even in the band and having fun playing music, I get such a rush and personal satisfaction, and I love connecting with people. That's why I do the podcast. That's why I love doing these things with you guys and having a chat and just discussing lots of different things. I love the interaction with people, and any excuse to be a fool and to crack a joke and be silly and stupid, I'm there. I don't mind. I just love it. It's just so much fun. So and you see that through all the band stuff that we do as well. Like I think I said to you guys more than like I said to you guys last time, like we take our music really seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously. So we can be absolute goofballs, but we know the music can talk for itself, and we can still act up and be silly. So just makes it really fun.
Fantastic. On that note, congratulations once again to Lord and to Andy Dowling. This has been a great chat. You want to quickly just summarize where all this content resides on the internet and where people can listen to more of this if need be, if they really like it, which I'm sure they would have.
And more of you also.
More of me. Okay, so I think for Undercovers, we can go to our main website, which is lord.net.au. If you're on Bandcamp, you can just go lordofficial.bandcamp.com. If you just want to get a taste and you're not quite convinced yet, then you can just search for Lord Undercovers on Spotify and Apple Music, and you'll find all the tracks there, and you can have a listen to the ones that are available on the streaming platforms. And from there, you'll see our whole back catalogue. You'll see everything we put out over the years. There's a lot of stuff to discover. And then for me, I've got the really wanky website, andydowling.net. It's like, just look at this guy, egomaniac. He's got his own website. But there you can access Lord, you can access the Andy Social podcast and some of the other podcasts that I've done over the years as well. And just it's a good way to dig into my world and see what I get up to. And yeah, hope people like it. And as we said before, with like social media and stuff, sometimes I feel that I live on it. I feel like I'm always on it. But I'm very easy to get a hold of. So if anyone ever wants to reach out and say hello, by all means, shoot me a message on pretty much any platform on the internet. I'm somewhere. I'm pretty much everywhere. I feel like I am anyway.
Even TikTok?
Oh, sorry, not TikTok.
Oh,
not TikTok. Yeah.
as yet.
If you had to choose a song to cover, which one would you pick? That's our question of the week. Send in your answers to hornsupod.com or on Twitter @hornsupod, or just tell us directly. We're all ears. I'm at Asmani on Twitter.
I'm at Trend Crusher.
And this was Horns Up.
Horns Up.